Welcome back to Make It Stick. Here we go. We're going to jump into Anki really quick. Okay, we actually do have 4 flashcards, that's right. What are the 6 sections of Chapter 6 Get Beyond Learning Styles? We got active learning from the get-go, successful intelligence, dynamic testing, rule versus example learning. The takeaway, what am I missing? Structure building, everything else is right. What are the 9 sections and 9 subsections of Chapter 4, Embrace Difficulties? How learning occurs. All right, give me a second. All right. What are the 9 sections and 9 subsections of Chapter 4, Embrace Difficulties? How learning occurs. Encoding, consolidation, retrieval. Extended learning, updating retrieval cues. Easier isn't better. How effort helps. Reconsolidating memories, broadening mastery, improving versatility, creating mental models, priming the mind for learning, fostering conceptual learning. Other learning strategies that incorporate desirable difficulties. Failure and the myth of errorless learning. An example of generative learning, undesirable difficulties, the takeaway. All right, that was pretty good. What core belief drives long-term skill growth, and how does it reshape behavior and brain structure? The core belief that learning or intelligence and abilities can be developed through effort strategy, or just the belief that intelligence and abilities are malleable and can be changed through one's effort strategy and guidance of others. How does it reshape behavior? Leads to more persistence, it leads to more grit, it leads to more discipline, it leads to going deeper, contributing more effort, sticking to things for longer. This all leads to strategizing, seeking feedback, learning from failures, embracing difficulties. All these things lead to development and structural changes of the brain. All right, effort, persistence, strategies, development areas that are worked on / trained. Good enough. What is the main idea of Chapter 7 of Make It Stick? Increase your abilities in 1 sentence. It's about, the main idea is that, I said what it's about. It was about characteristics and a mindset, a characteristic and beliefs / mindset that lead to increasing one's abilities and intelligence, as well as mnemonic devices. It's about mindset and characteristics that lead to increasing intelligence and abilities plus mnemonic devices. That's good enough. All right, boom, Anki's done. So we got nothing to recall from yesterday. We were just outlining Chapter 8, the final chapter of Make It Stick. It's been a long journey, but let's go ahead and continue outlining it, finishing up the outline, and then we'll go ahead and start reading. Columbia, Illinois Public School District. Yeah, that sounds like the not pure instruction, but the testing in class. All right, here we go. This is a new one. Tips for trainers. Trainer tips. In-service training. Oh my gosh, more people. Kathy Mixner, business coach. Business coach, huh? Farmers insurance. All right, we gotta be close. Jiffy Lube. Anderson windows and doors. I didn't know they were national. Anderson windows and doors. Inner gate acupuncture. Wow. Interesting. Okay, well that's two. Should we make a Augie flashcard where we memorize these? Oh my gosh, that's it. That's it. So we got it all in 2 pages. All right, let's make an Augie flashcard. What are the 35 main points or sections of chapter 8? We're not doing that. So let's just check. Here we go. Inner gate acupuncture. Anderson windows and doors. Jiffy Lube. Farmers Insurance. Kathy Meixner, business coach. In-service training, tips for trainers. Columbia, Illinois Public School District. Kathleen McDermott, we missed that. Kathleen McDermott, psychology professor. Washington University at St. Louis. All right. Yep, Michael D. Matthews, psychology professor, U.S. Military Academy at West Point. Closing the achievement gap in the sciences. Bloom's taxonomy of learning paragraphs, summary sheets, free recall, testing groups, transparency. Mary Pat Wenderoth, biology professor, University of Washington, be transparent. Create desirable difficulties in the classroom, teach students how to study, explain to students how to learn, tips for teachers, elaboration, reflection, generation, retrieval practice, tips for lifelong learners, Timothy Fellows, intro psych student. They love psychology in the psychology book. Might Go Young, medical student. Is that what's next? This is a long one. Yep. Mnemonic devices, calibration, reflection, generation, elaboration. Let's see elaboration. Where the hell is elaboration? There it is. Other effective study techniques or study strategies. Interleave study of different problem types. Space out your retrieval practice. Practice retrieving new learning from memory. Learning tips for students. All right. You know what that means? This means that we're going to say, what is this chapter about? And we're going to jump in. Oh. All right. Here we go. Beginning chapter 8 today, the final chapter of Make It Stick. Let's go. All right, guys, there's going to be a lot to retrieve. I can already tell you that, because this is just a condensed version of the entire book in one chapter, it seems like. Really, what this chapter seems to be about is kind of a wrap-up of the whole book, condensing the whole book, but also much more focused on practical tips rather than the empirical evidence in the studies themselves and examples, just like what you can do. And so we're starting off with tips for students, really 3 of them, plus some extras that are like keystone strategies: retrieval, interleaving, and variation. I don't know what the third is. I would think it's probably a variation. No, retrieval, spaced, and then interleaving, and then some other useful techniques, probably like elaboration, right? Reflection, generation, variation. So number one for students, retrieval practice. This was, so many notes. All right. Retrieval should be the number one study technique you use. It should be how you learn. It is the keystone. It is the main way to learn. Retrieval really means self-quizzing. It just really means pulling things out of your memory, creating things from your own memory. Right. Before we got into retrieval, they had a little notes on the students. Like the most successful students often have simple but disciplined strategies, and our intellectual abilities can be developed, and that development and increase lies largely within our control. Real significant learning often incorporates lots of difficulties, confusion, and setbacks, and maybe even doubt, but that's part of the real learning that's significant. So it's a good thing. It shouldn't be, seen as failure or a reason to quit. So that gives me a lot of hope for all the stuff that I'm getting into that's pretty difficult. Linear algebra, particularly, even stuff with business and stuff. That's that I've got to problem solve. So retrieval, cornerstone, keystone, self-quizzing, some prompts for retrieval. What are the key points? So that's already kind of what I do naturally. What are new terms that I didn't know? Do that naturally as well. How would I explain these in my own words, or how do I describe these new terms in my own words? And then how do these ideas connect to things I already know? So I think I'm hitting a lot of these already with the system I've built. Though it is extremely slow. They had an interesting note. They said after 1 or 2 reading/reviews of the text, retrieval practice becomes much more effective learning technique. So it's like, I wonder what the optimal amount of retrieval is. Would it be better just to read the book once? And I could have read this book, this is episode 99, I think. So 44 and a half hours. I probably could have read this book. I'm not the fastest reader, but I could have probably read this book in 10 hours. So that's a long time ago. That's months ago. I could have read this once and then started retrieving, but I don't know. Maybe what we're doing is pretty optimal. It's slow. So I'm just going to stick with it for now. But I mean, it works. It definitely works. But we have to just build little bits of knowledge at a time. And work our way through a book a couple pages at a time. What else do we got? So we had the prompts. We had that interesting note. Like our brain, like our intuition says to reread, it says to mass practice, says to highlight, review, underline. But all those, unfortunately, are pretty poor study techniques. That retrieval is better than all of them. Retrieval, it also interrupts forgetting. The strikes against the other practice or study techniques just mentioned are they don't lead to reliable mastery of the material, and they lead to feelings of mastery, illusions of mastery. So a double whammy, whereas retrieval leads to a double win. It actually strengthens, develops the brain, but it also shows weaknesses. So use quizzing to find weaknesses and then attack those areas and bring those areas up. All right, I think that's basically everything. Making errors won't set you back learning as long as you get feedback and correct your mistakes. And that's literally what I'm doing right now. And this is built in. It's like check my answers. That's why I take these physical notes, is so that I can check my answers, see if I got everything or not. Harder the retrieval, the more learning. So all this stuff we covered already, but it's just kind of, like I said, a huge condensing of the whole book, feels like so far. That's it for today. We have officially less than 50 pages, or about 50 pages left, so pretty cool. That's it for today. Talk to you tomorrow. See ya.